We're in a series called Win at Home. How many of you were here for part 1 of Win at Home? Great start to the series, and I'm here to build on that with part 2. We're gonna talk about boundaries tonight. Come on, somebody. All right, that's a better response. Usually when you're like, we're gonna talk about boundaries, it's, oh, you know? There's like a glorious grunt in the house, and you're like, oh man, that's a bummer. But just to prime it, here's the deal. Topic is boundaries, but I want you to write in your notes, if you're taking notes, living my best life. Living my best life. Right next to boundaries, put living my best life. Yesterday, I was driving back from Fairlawn, because that's what I do. I drive back and forth pretty much a couple times a week. And so I was up in Fairlawn, and I'm driving back for a meeting here at the Freedom campus. And I'm at the intersection, but I'm the third car in the intersection. And you know the light turns like yellow and then it kind of turns red, but you can turn left, right? When it's, yeah, everybody follow me? Do you all drive? Okay, that's good. So it's like, not a relevant example, none of us drive. Okay, so anyways, I'm the third car, right? And so I'm the third car, and the dude in front of me is in a minivan, something sketchy there already, but he's in a minivan, and he's like pumping his fist at the car in front of it. He's like pumping his fist, yelling. You can only imagine what he was yelling. I like to believe he was praising the Lord, not screaming profanity, but I have a feeling that he was screaming profanities at the car in front of him. He was just all upset at the car that was in front of him. And I'm like, what's going on? And literally from my perspective, it was like, yeah, you should probably be turning. Like, you can turn right now. Like, you can turn. And so the person in front of me obviously thought the same thing. Like, you can turn, and not only can you turn, I'm mad that you're not turning, and I'm gonna pump my fists, I'm gonna yell because you're not turning. All of a sudden, though, what we came to find out is why they weren't turning. They weren't turning, they hesitated, the light turned red, it was red for a split second, and all of a sudden, this large pickup truck comes barreling through that red light. And here's what I realized in that moment. Sometimes we don't have the right understanding or the right view of something because we have a limited perspective of that thing. And I truly believe this, that when you have the right perspective towards boundaries, it's a game changer. See, there was something that first car saw. They were ahead of us. There was something that first car saw that we couldn't see. They had a perspective from where they were sitting that we didn't have. I want to encourage you tonight that it's the same with your Heavenly Father. He has a perspective that you don't see. He's gone ahead of you. How many of you are thankful that Jesus went ahead of us? He faced everything that we would face in this life. And so in the Word, there are boundaries that are set that some people will view as bondage, but they're actually there to make you free. In fact, the enemy will try to convince you that boundaries are bondage. But here's a few things that boundaries actually are. Boundaries, they provide protection. If you're taking notes, I want you to write that down. Boundaries provide protection. They're protection. Boundaries guard what's important. With saying boundaries guard, in Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23, it actually says this. It says, guard your heart above all else. For out of it flow the issues of life, or for it determines the course of your life. See, boundaries are gonna help you guard and protect what's important. And here's what you need to know in here tonight, that boundaries actually bring freedom. Boundaries don't create bondage. In fact, sometimes we view it as, man, God doesn't want me to do wrong things, or he doesn't want me to sin because he doesn't want me to have fun. The opposite is true. The opposite is true. God wants you to have boundaries in your life so that you can actually live your best life, so that you can go ahead and avoid some of the regret. If you'll set the right boundaries in your life, you'll avoid a lot of the regret that other people have, a lot of the things that go wrong, a lot of the hurt, a lot of the emotional baggage that other people have, you can avoid. But until you view sin and other things like that as bondage, you'll never actually live free. And so it's vitally important that we understand that boundaries are a good thing. In fact, boundaries, they're how you win at life. Boundaries are how you win at life. Jude is in this thing right now. Jude is our 6-year-old. Jillian and I, we have a 6-year-old, and he is awesome. He wakes up every morning and like 6 a.m., and he's the most talkative person at 6 a.m. that I have ever met in my entire life. I am not even ready until about 9 a.m., but Jude is like testing my patience as a father. He's making me better. It's great. But he will go to this is Jude. He'll go to the dining room table. He'll be working on worksheets at like 6:30. I'm like, who is this kid? Anyways, Jude is in this season where we have YMCA sports. In fact, it was basketball last 8 weeks. And now this 8 weeks, it's a trial through all of the sports. So we've done golf, we've done tennis, we've done basketball, we've done flag football. But flag football, if I'm honest, it was a difficult time. Here's why. We had 4 like preschoolers there, and there's only 4 in the class. 4 preschoolers trying to play flag football. It was really interesting. For someone that likes to follow the rules, really tough. I'm sitting there, and Jude, the first time he gets the ball, he runs, and he's out of bounds by like a mile, but he's getting away from them for sure. But every other parent is just letting this go. The other parents, I'm looking at them like, are you nuts? Your kid has the ball now, and he's out of bounds. I called Jude over. Jude was about the 3rd one with the ball. The other parents just let it go. I called Jude over. I'm like, Jude, come over here. I said, hey, you've got to stay in the boundaries. You've got to stay in bounds. And he was like, what does that mean? And so I had to explain to him, like, hey, there are boundaries on the field that you have to stay within if you want to actually score a touchdown. He's like, but I got away from everybody. I'm like, yes, that's true. You did get away from everybody, but that wouldn't count. See, here's the thing. I think that we fail to see that boundaries actually help us win. Sometimes we think that going outside the lines is a good thing, but can I encourage you, it never is, because boundaries, they're how we win at life. So here's 3 areas, real quickly, that I believe that we need to set boundaries in our relationships. If you're taking notes, I want you to write these 3 things down. The first one is simply this. It's boundaries to guard your time. Remember, boundaries help you guard what's important. Boundaries to guard your time. And here's the thing that I believe that you and we need to get better at least maybe I'm just preaching myself tonight, but we need to get better at learning to say no. Learning to say no. In fact, in Matthew 5:37, the HCSB version, because that's a cool version, it says, but let your word be yes, let your word yes be yes, and let your no be no. Anything more than this is from the evil one. Have you ever noticed this though? Maybe you're like me. I tend to be a people pleaser. I tend to have trouble saying no. Anybody else? Anybody with me in here? I tend to have trouble saying no to people. And that can be a huge problem because I want people to like me, so I go to lengths and I say yes to things that I should say no to, and I don't want to, but I do it anyways, and it's just this constant struggle. And one of the things I'm learning is to say no to things so that I can say yes to the right things. But some of you struggle with saying no to people. Have you ever had that super like needy friend? That super needy friend that like, not in a bad way, don't look at them now, don't bump them, it's fine. But they're needy, they're like high maintenance, if you will. They're like texting you all the time. They need you all the time. You gotta be hanging out all the time. It's draining. It's crazy. Right. But that's just kind of how they are. And I'll never forget, when I first got into ministry, there were some leaders even that would text me. I'm newly married, newly in ministry. They'd text me, one specifically, every night. This dude would text me wanting to hang out every single night, every day off that I had. He knew what my day off was at the church. Every single time he would text me. And I'm feeling bad. Like, you know what I mean? I'm feeling bad, but I'm like trying to dodge it. And eventually it got to the point where he would like know where I was gonna be at certain times and like show up there. And I'm like, bro, I'm not down with this. I'm just gonna be honest, maybe this makes me sound like a bad person. I need low maintenance friendships. Come on, somebody. With what I do, I need low maintenance friendships. My best friendships, some of them now, because I'm a dad now. I have 2 kids and they keep me busy all the time. And so one of the things with some of my greatest friendships is we'll go months without talking, months without hanging out, but when we get together, we pick back up right where we left off. Anybody have a friend like that maybe they're a little bit distant, but you pick back up right where you left off? I love those kind of friendships, the ones that are low maintenance. But the reality is, we all, if we're honest, we have a high maintenance friend. We all have somebody that's draining, demanding of time, always in our ear, always on the text, always trying to FaceTime. You know what I'm talking about. And if we don't learn to say no, what happens is this. We think that we need to be more accessible when what we need is actually to be more assertive. We think that we need to be more accessible. Well, I feel bad. Maybe I should just do this. And the reality of it is, you don't need to be more accessible. You need to be more assertive. You need to be clear with your communication on what your boundaries are. Because you can't hang out with somebody every day. You can't always be there to answer every person's problems. It's not your job. You've got to be able to pursue the things that God placed on your heart to pursue. One of them being your schoolwork. I mean, come on, somebody. You got to be able to do your schoolwork. Some of you are like, you went there. Come on now. This is supposed to be church. You're supposed to make me feel better. You're supposed to preach me happy. It's just a reality of life, people. You've got schoolwork. You've got other things. Some of you play sports. Some of you have other things. You don't have time for all that. So you got to be assertive. Be clear in your communication. See, here's the thing. Clarity is great. Clarity and communication, it actually, if the friendship is a right friendship and it's a healthy friendship, it's going to only make that friendship stronger when you give clarity and set boundaries. But here's what it'll also do when you set boundaries. It'll help show you what relationships are toxic. Because here's the thing. Some of you have had this happen where you go to set a boundary with somebody. You go to kind of be assertive, to kind of communicate, hey, like, just so you know, like, I can't hang out. I need like a break. I need some space. Like, whoa, I need some space. And they're like, I can't believe that you don't have time for me. I can't believe that you'd say that you can't hang out with me. That's so mean. And they play on your feelings. Anybody? They play on your feelings to get you to do what they want you to do. I want to encourage you. You setting boundaries is not mean. What they're doing is manipulation. They're trying to play on your emotions to get you to do what they want you to do instead of doing what you intended to do because it's your time. It's not their time. Don't let other people steal your time. And I know friendships are fun. A lot of friendships are fun, but here's what I find more often than not. Some friendships are draining, but there's never clear communication on what's draining, on where the boundaries are, but we just tend to distance ourselves and try to flee from the premises of where they're at, and we try to just get away, and we try to not tackle it head on or talk to them about it. And honestly, that causes more hurt than it is helpful. But when you're clear in your communication, you leave no questions about it, but you say, hey, here's my boundary. Like, I can only hang out like certain times, and I'll let you know when I can hang out. Finally, I had to let this dude know, like, hey man, I will let you know when I'm ready to hang out. But until then, don't ask me to hang out. Like, because I'm not in a season of my life where I'm gonna really be hanging out a whole lot. So you've got to guard and you've got to respect yourself enough to guard your time and respect your own time. We only have so much time, and we've got to use our time intentionally for what is most important. So set boundaries and learn to say no. Again, this is going to strengthen your healthy relationships, and this is going to identify your toxic relationships and help you know what relationships you should actually have. So the second thing is simply this. Boundaries guard your emotions. See, just like time and people who just drain you of your time, people can drain your emotions. And here's what I know. You only have so much emotional energy. You need to spend it on what's most important. When we spend our emotional energy on what doesn't matter much, we miss out on spending it on what matters most. And I want to spend my emotional energy on what matters most. Here's a couple things. You've got to guard yourself from trying to fix other people's problems. You've got to guard yourself from feeling the responsibility and the weight of other people's choices. You've got to guard yourself from feeling like you need to come in and help them fix all of their problems and be the answer and be their personal counselor and all of those things. See, some of you might have a personality like mine where all of your friends call you when they have a problem. I was always that friend in high school that friends would call me with problems. And that's great to be a friend that's reliable, but it's not good to be a friend that's constantly dumped on. It's great to be a reliable friend, but there has to be boundaries. Otherwise, that can be, if your first call, if you're in here and you're a friend, and your first call is always to a friend when something happens, and it's not going to the throne in prayer, if you're talking about your problems more than you're praying about your problems, then you're missing the point of where your dependency needs to be. Your dependency needs to be on Jesus and Jesus alone. It can't be on a person, because that's putting an unrealistic demand and an unrealistic expectation on what they can do for you. They were never meant to do that for you. In fact, if you're a good friend and you're good at giving advice, you're going to always point them back to Jesus, always point them back to his presence, always point them back to his word. Because the truth is, you don't have answers within yourself. You may be able to point them back to wisdom that's in the word, but you can't be the answer to all of their problems. There's only one answer. His name's Jesus. So when you try to be the answer, when you try to be that person that they depend on all the time, you rob them of the opportunity to really cultivate their relationship with God. I see this happen in friendships. I see it happen in dating relationships where they become almost like your crutch. They become the person that's like holding you up. I don't think we need a crutch in the church. We need the cornerstone, whose name is Jesus. How many of you agree with that in this place? That aren't you thankful for Jesus, that he is the chief cornerstone? The other thing that you've got to guard yourself against is you've got to guard yourself against secondhand offense. See, here's the thing about emotional energy. A lot of emotional energy gets spent on drama. Let's be honest. Some of you could tell days worth of stories about the drama that's gone on in your life and everybody around you's life in the last 3 months. Some of you in the last 3 days. Some of you in the last 3 hours. Have you ever been around a person that every time they're around, it's just drama? And the thing about that is, when you're around dramatic people, you're tempted to get dramatic too. And then you miss out on the opportunity to be disciplined in your thinking because you're dramatic with everything in your thinking. You take everything to the next level. Everything that's this big of a problem turns into this big of a problem. You're dramatic. And so here's what you have to guard yourself against. When somebody has something against somebody else and they don't go to the somebody else that they have a problem with, but they come to you, the Bible talks about this. It talks about this in the book of Matthew. It says in Matthew 24, 10 through 12, it says, and then many will be offended, will betray one another, and will hate one another. Then many false prophets will rise up and deceive many. And because lawlessness will abound, the love of many, it's going to grow cold. So it says many people, they're going to be offended. I wonder how much offense is actually firsthand offense, because here's what I've found. A lot of offense is actually secondhand offense, where you're offended because somebody did something to somebody else that you care about, and so they were offended, so then you got offended because offense, it spreads like a virus. And if you don't set up a boundary where I'm not going to be offended, I'm not taking on secondhand offense, I'm not going to be a part of the drama, I'm here to be disciplined in my thinking, I'm disciplined in my emotions, and we're going to draw a conclusion that, hey, you need to go to the person that you have a problem with and talk to them about it and resolve it, because here's what the enemy wants, especially here at the United. You need to hear this tonight. If you're here at the United, the enemy wants nothing more than to divide us. as the church, because he knows that a united church, man, there's nothing impossible for them. But he knows if he can keep dividing over small drama that doesn't actually matter, if he can keep getting people to be undisciplined in their emotions, if he can keep getting people to take the bait of offense, then they'll never accomplish what it is that God set them out to accomplish. That he'll always keep them distracted by the drama, and he is perfectly content with that. Here's what I want to declare, that man, I'm not going to be distracted by the drama, but man, I'm going to be dedicated to what it is that God's called me to do, because he's commissioned me and he's called me. Come on, if you're in here tonight, you've been commissioned and you've been called, and you're here for such a time as this to take your place as a follower of Jesus. You don't have time for the drama, for the distractions. You don't have time for it. You've got to be disciplined in your thinking. You got to be disciplined in your emotions. Here's another side of this. If you're dating in here, I want to talk to you for a minute. You've got to be guarded in how emotionally attached you get in a dating relationship early on. What do I mean by that? A lot of people, they get in a dating relationship and right away, they're like bearing their soul to the other person. Don't do that. Allow the relationship to grow as a friendship. Keep them at the same distance you would a friend that you just became friends with. Because if you just dive in full go, you're going to have a lot of emotional hurt that was avoidable. You're going to open yourself up before you should have. Here's another side to this. Don't pray together when you're dating or when you're newly dating. That's going to go against what a lot of you think. Don't pray together when you're dating. Prayer is an intimate conversation. It's you being completely who you are before God. See, there are certain things that I believe are intended for your marriage. Praying together is one of those things. If you've been dating for a long time, or you're engaged, or you're intended to marry, then maybe that's the commitment that makes it okay. But can I tell you, if you're in high school here tonight and you're dating somebody, don't pray with that somebody. See, there's no need for you to join spiritually, emotionally. That's only going to make your attachment greater. Here's what I've seen happen time and time again. I saw this happen with some of my best friends in high school. They'd be dating. They'd be all about church. They'd be at church with me. It'd be all fun, man. We had a bunch of people coming to church. Can I tell you, we had everybody coming to church. It was hype in church. It was so much fun. We had so many people coming to church, so many people in our friend group coming to church, that we went down. There was a Taco Bell at the bottom of the hill of where the church was, and this was Faith Family where it used to be, and we had so many people coming with us to that Taco Bell that they had to double the staff on Wednesday nights because they couldn't keep up with all the food we were ordering. Come on, somebody, that's revival in the Taco Bell. And so, but here's what happened. Some of my friends were dating, and I thought it was a good thing. You're dating somebody in church. This is awesome. But then all of a sudden, what I started to realize is their relationship with God was totally found, and the identity of that relationship was totally found and intertwined with their relationship with that other person. And what happened was, when that didn't work out, their relationship with God was so intertwined with that they not only walked away from the relationship, they walked away from God. They walked away from both at the same time. It was devastating. I'm talking some of my close friends. It was devastating. I remember trying to get them back, but it was so wrapped up in. And then they got back together, and guess what? Oh, back in the church. Oh, hands lifted. Oh, reading the Bible. Oh, everything. Broke up again, gone. Why? It was intertwined. It was one and the same. Their relationship with God was so tied to this other person that without this other person, there was no relationship with God. Man, make sure that you individually are a whole person, complete all by yourself. Jesus didn't make you half of a person. He made you to be complete in him. Find your identity in him. Be complete in him. Have somebody else in a dating relationship just add to and spur you on in your pursuit of him, but pursue him all by yourself. Have a prayer life all by yourself. Don't use them to sustain it. Don't use them to fulfill something that they can't. And don't allow them to be right in the center of your spirituality when you're just newly dating. I just don't think it's healthy. I just don't think it's healthy. And I've seen it play out too many times. Some of you are like, well, I'm dating and I pray together, and you're just gonna have to deal. Be careful. That's all I'm saying. I love you, care about you, be careful because you have to guard yourself emotionally. See, here's the deal. Ladies, you're gonna have to be careful because us guys, I wanna let you know about us, we know the right things to say sometimes. And we know how to play on, honestly, guys know how to play on emotions. And here's the thing. I know I've said like, here's the thing like 800 times, but honestly, here's the thing. Guys will feed into the emotions of the girl that they're pursuing. They'll give them the emotional, and girls, you crave it. You crave that emotional attachment. You crave it. And so guys will give you that in order to get the physical. And I've seen too many times in a dating relationship way too soon, it goes physical because the female so desperately wants to fill a void within herself. Ladies, you've got to guard yourself against this. Wanting to fill a void, not feeling your value, not seeing your identity in him, not seeing how valuable, how worth it you actually are. The Bible says that you're fearfully and wonderfully made. The Bible says that you're his masterpiece. You're created in his image. You need to be confident in who you are. Confident people set boundaries. Insecure people will always shy away from setting boundaries because they're afraid it will cost them something. Can I encourage you? If setting boundaries costs you a dating relationship, good. It's a good thing. You didn't need it anyways. You're complete in him. And here's what I know to be true. I've seen it play out so many times. God will bring the right person in the right time, in the right season, when you're ready. When you're pursuing God, all of a sudden as you're pursuing God, somebody else that's pursuing God will meet you in that season that's the right season. And it's when you're ready. It's when you're ready. I wonder how much time we waste pointlessly dating in high school. And if I could go back and do anything different, I wouldn't have dated anybody, if I'm really honest. But I had insecurities like everybody else that rooted in pride that caused me to date and like date for 3 weeks and then date somebody else. And then I was just like hanging out all the time with people. And I wish that I wouldn't have done that. I genuinely wish that I would have just waited and just dated one person because that's the only person that I needed to date. But I wasn't mature enough to realize that. Here's where I feel like you can do it different. You can learn from people like me who did some things the wrong way, and you can do it the right way. By the grace of God, I kept my purity all throughout high school, kept my purity all throughout college until I got married, kept my purity, but I didn't guard my heart the way I needed to. I caused myself and other people a lot of emotional hurt because I wasn't mature enough to realize, like, I don't need to date right now. I just need to focus on me, and I need to focus on my relationship with God. I need to focus on discovering what my calling is and figuring out what direction I'm going before I ever start dating. I didn't realize that. I was looking for somebody to add to something that I just wasn't ready. Some of you need to just look in the mirror and just say, like, honestly, like, I'm just not ready. Like, you'll never regret the wrong relationship that you don't get in. You'll never regret it. You'll never regret being intentional with your dating. It's really quiet and it's a really shouter message tonight, I know, but man, it'll help you. The third thing is simply this: boundaries. You need boundaries to guard your purity. You need boundaries to guard your purity. I mentioned that guys will feed into the emotions to get what they want. And it's so true. But you have to have boundaries. And I'm talking to the guys in here. Guys, you need to lead in relationships. Can I encourage you? If you're not ready to set the boundary in a relationship, please, by all means, don't get in a relationship. If you're not man enough to set boundaries, then you're not man enough to date. You just aren't. And I don't mean that in a demeaning way. What I mean is you're going to cause regret. And here's what I know about love. Love always causes restoration and never regret. Lust will cause regret, but love never will. And I want to just make sure in here tonight because it's cloudy in our culture, the difference between love and lust. It's very cloudy because in our culture, they objectify women. Women aren't an object. And can I encourage you, if you struggle with porn in this place and you're a dude, then you should not date somebody. Get that right first. Because the biggest myth is that that won't follow you into your relationship, or that won't follow you into your marriage. And it's a myth. I know this because I meet with married men who are like, I never thought that this would, I thought that once I got married, it would stop. I thought that once I got married, it would never like start to affect my marriage, but it's now affecting my marriage and I don't know what to do. And it's like, if they could go back 8-10 years and just stop it in high school, they're like, man, if I could do anything, if I could go back, I'd just stop. I just stop it. You have that opportunity. You don't have to see it come into every relationship and cause damage. You can set boundaries in your life for your eyes right now that help you to stay pure, because purity isn't just not having sex. Purity is when you're keeping yourself, for the person that you're gonna marry, you're keeping your eyes pure. You're keeping yourself pure. You're fleeing from sexual immorality. You're not doing those things. You're like, I thought we weren't supposed to talk about the don'ts. I thought we were under grace. Yes, you are under grace. Grace doesn't lower the standard. Grace raises the standard, and it gives you a different motive behind following. It gives you a different motive for why you're not gonna do certain things. The motive is different because he's been so good. And if he says in his word, hey, you've gotta put a line here. You've gotta set a boundary here. If he said that, then I know he wants what's best for me. He gave his life for me. And if he gave his life and he wants what's best, then I want to choose intentionally to walk in his best. I want to set boundaries so I can live my best life. In 1 Corinthians 6:18, it says, run from sexual sin. No other sin so clearly affects the body as this one does. For sexual immorality is a sin against your own body. Until we view sin as bondage, we'll never actually live free. What you thought was fun may have been fun for a season, but it'll never lead you to true freedom. See, Jesus sets you free, but it's on you to stay free. See, don't run to the same thing that you were set free from. You were set free from having to be bound to the desires of your flesh. The sexual desires, they don't have to overcome you. Lust, if you look at the definition of lust, it actually means any uncontrollable desire. See, grace, Jesus came so that you could have the control back, so that your desires, so that those feelings, they would no longer have a hold on you, but you could control them and say, no temptation is gonna overcome me, because greater is he that's in me than he that's in this world. The temptation that comes against you, it's no different than anyone else. The Bible says that. And it says that God is faithful, that he will always provide you a way out or a way of escape. I believe that to be so true in this place, that if you want to get out, God will always provide a way. He'll always empower you by his grace. Some of you, when you start to go certain places in your mind, when your eyes start to drift, you need to get accountability on your phone, first of all. You need to get some locks placed. You need to get some accountability where someone else sees where you're going with it. You need some accountability for your eyes, but you need to, anytime your eyes want to go there, anytime your mind wants to go there, you need to just be like, you know what, Jesus, I thank you that by your grace, you've given me the ability to overcome the temptation of sin. I thank you that I'm free, that I no longer have to be bound by these lustful thoughts. You can tell those thoughts exactly where to go. And you can replace it with what God's word says. What does his word say? It says whatever's pure, whatever's lovely, whatever's of good report. Think on these things. See, it's not enough to remove a thought. You've got to replace the thought. You've got to guard your purity. There's something about a generation that's willing to guard their purity. There's something about it. See, we think that sex isn't spiritual, but the reality is, it is. God intended it to bring you together as one with whoever it is that you're having sex with. And this is important because in Hebrews it talks about, hey, honor sex, honor the marriage bed. That's what God intended sex for. Anytime that you're doing it out of God's context, you're not gonna experience the best version of it that he has for you. One of the things that I'm most thankful for is that my wife and I were able to look at each other and say, hey, we kept ourselves pure. We kept ourselves pure. And if you haven't up to this point, I'm not trying to condemn you. What I'm trying to do is tell you that there is a better way to live. There is a way to live free from this. And if you don't identify it as bondage, you'll never live free. But I believe tonight that we're going to identify the works of the enemy for exactly what they are. They're simply distractions from what we should be doing. And so once you identify that, you're good to go. But man, there's such a temptation. It's blasted all around you in this generation. But I believe that God's raising up a generation right here at the United who says, I'm not buying into the lie. I'm not buying into the temptation. I'm not buying what our culture is selling. I see right through it. And I know God's best, and God's best looks like boundaries. And so men, we're gonna lead the way. We're gonna set boundaries. We're gonna set boundaries for our eyes and our minds so that then when we date, it's easy to set boundaries in our dating relationship. I'm not gonna go there. Hey, we're not gonna be alone in a car together. Listen, Jilly and I dated in groups. We dated in groups for the entire time that we were in high school. We were long distance in college, but we dated in groups in high school. Why? Because I didn't trust myself. Because she was hot and I was in high school. You know what I mean? I didn't trust myself. Some of you need to get past that point where you trust yourself. You need to say, you know what? I'm not even gonna go into the place of temptation. I'm gonna go away from that as fast and as far as I can. I love that the Bible says, run from sexual sin. Run from it. Run from it. In order to run from it, you gotta remove yourself. You gotta run from those situations that sometimes you may have put yourself in the past that caused you to compromise. You gotta run from those situations. If you wait till you're in the moment of temptation to set a boundary, it's already too late. Set them up front, be clear, be specific about it. Say, I'm not gonna go there. I'm gonna set these boundaries to keep us pure. If you're dating in a relationship and you're a guy, man, this is what I would ask. Dude, be a leader. Be the leader that I know that you can be. The leader that I know that God's called you to be. Lead the relationship well. Lead it in love, not in lust. Set boundaries because boundaries protect. Boundaries guard what's important. And boundaries, they bring freedom. If you truly value the person that you're dating, you're gonna respect that certain boundaries shouldn't be crossed. Never let a guy, never let a girl disrespect those boundaries. If they don't respect your boundaries, then you don't have any reason to be with them. But I believe if we set boundaries in the area of our emotions, if we set boundaries in the area of our purity, if we set boundaries in the area of our time, if we set boundaries in all of these areas when it comes to our friendships and our relationships, then our relationships are gonna be life-giving. Our relationships, they're gonna be full of joy. This is how God intended it. This is how you live your best life. May not have looked how you thought it would look, but it looks way better. If you take a step back, it just looks way better. You're no longer drained, no longer overcome by the drama, and you have the discipline to say no. I'm not gonna go there. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna talk about that. I'm not gonna think about that. It's the way to freedom. Some of you, I believe tonight is about getting free and staying free. Can I pray for you?